And welcome back to the Behind the Dunes podcast. I'm your host, Connor. It's been a while, but we are back. Today, we are here with two new Dunes agents, Todd and Angie Hutchins. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
It's good to have you guys here.
We're so excited.
And we're going to have a blast today. So, as always, don't have any pre-set up questions. I'm just going to talk. So, tell me about you guys.
Fire away.
Yeah. So, we're going to start off. Where'd you guys grow up? And how did you eventually meet each other? So we can start back as far back as you want.
What? You want me to start?
Go ahead.
I grew up in Winston-Salem and lived there until after college, and then got a job and got transferred to, I'm going to tell you the short story. I got transferred to Knoxville which was a paper and packaging company called Dillard Paper, and that's where I met Angie. And so we stayed there for almost 14 years before moving back to Winston-Salem when we got into real estate.
With a little 2-year stop in Johnson City.
Yeah.
Nice. We're going to take it back.
Okay.
Way back. What'd you go to college for?
The mountains.
There you go.
My major was finance.
Okay.
But the reason I went to Western Carolina was because of the mountains, because I love the mountains, like to do the outdoor things. And so it was going to be Western Carolina or Appalachian, so we chose Western.
Nice. And what made you want to go into finance?
Well, I always wanted to go into finance, really, and I wanted to do personal financial plans for people, and really that was my first job out of college, was to get into finance. So I got with a company out of Charlotte, and I left after about 6 months because it seemed like the major focus was on whatever they made the highest commission on versus really trying to help the client. So I was like, this is not exactly what I thought I was signing up for. And so I realized after that I just needed to get into something where I could do tangible sales. Not that I still don't like the finance part and how they manage things, but it was a little bit, at least the company I was with at that point, just focused too much on how much the company made. So I was like, this is not my cup of tea.
For sure.
So got into selling paper and packaging, which was tangible and people could touch it and feel it and see what they were doing. And, you know, we had customers that I visited every week. And so it was a good business.
Angie?
So I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. And in case people didn't know, Winston is in North Carolina. But went to Vanderbilt. Loved being near the mountains and that state. But met Todd through a friend in a bar. You never know. 30 years later. It was a great thing to happen. Let's see. I was a nurse, labor and delivery, a med surgeon, then labor and delivery. And then we had 4 boys. Well, we had 3 boys, and then he had a brain tumor. And then I stopped being a nurse, and we focused a lot on health and taking care of the kids. And then we wound up homeschooling. I wound up homeschooling and being involved in a lot of community things. I wound up being a swim coach and a science teacher and sometimes a history teacher. And because one of the hardest things with homeschooling is that people that aren't familiar with it is there's so many helps and there's so many co-ops. So it was really neat to be part of a community of people really invested in building future folks.
We're going to have to go back and unpack that. So I mean, there's a lot there that you just said. Okay. So
I like to land the plane.
So you were a labor and delivery nurse.
Yes.
How long were you a labor and delivery nurse?
I think 3 years.
Yeah, 3 to 4 years, yeah.
And then he was in the midst of being diagnosed with a brain tumor. And once I was only working like twice a month, it got really hard to be there. And we were in a high-risk OB floor. And I felt like I wasn't taking care of my people as well as I could because I was only there 2 to 4 times a month. And it just wasn't enough to stay current.
And they kept moving stuff, so you would not know where.
Yeah, if you needed the one night that we needed an oxygen mask for a baby, and if you have to ask where an oxygen mask is for a baby, you don't need to be there.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Real stuff.
You had a brain tumor.
It was Cushing's disease, which means I had a tumor on my pituitary gland. So they removed the tumor, which pretty much removed the pituitary gland. So this is a whole health conversation, but the pituitary controls all your other glands.
Yeah.
A bunch of them.
A bunch of them.
Right.
So basically, you have to go on what's called full replacement. So I end up taking all the other hormones just because my body doesn't make it. But that's been 2001 was when I had that surgery. So 22 years it's been. So that's been good.
So you already had 3 boys at that time, right?
3 boys, and we were told by the neurosurgeon and endocrinologist we would not have the 4th. And Liam's been loudly announcing his presence ever since.
Yeah.
So,
But I always wanted 4, so it's been great. I just never dreamed I'd have 4 boys.
so how did you end up realizing, or like, what were the symptoms or the catalyst of?
Oh my goodness.
It took 6 years.
It took a while because it's not easy to diagnose for
Right.
one. And so then you end up having to, you go to one doctor, they run these tests. Okay, you have high blood pressure. Are you drinking? Are you smoking? No.
His face was super puffy. Super puffy.
Yeah. So it's like if you've ever seen anybody on prednisone, they get really red in the face and inflamed, and you get your arms and legs get really thin. Anyways, from basically my body overproducing cortisol, which is what that tumor was on the pituitary. And so it made my body produce 8 times the amount it should have been producing. And so it caused blood pressure issues. It caused panic attacks and all this anxiety stuff and bruising, sort of like an 80-year-old man. My skin would if I just hit this right here, I would be bruising.
For years.
Yeah. So it took a while, and I had doctors say, you can run the gamut of doctors trying to figure this out. And it just happened to get lucky. And we had a Christmas party, and these 2 doctors were at our house who were just friends from the church. And I was telling them what was going on, and I think because they were just sort of fresh out of med school, they were doctors, but just finished a residency, the whole 9 yards. And when I was telling them I thought I had a thyroid problem, and I named off sort of all the symptoms I had, and one of them said, Donna was like, have you looked at Cushing's? Because it seems like you're naming a lot of symptoms about Cushing's, and I had no idea what Cushing's was. So when I went to the endocrinologist, he goes, why are you here? And I said, I think I have Cushing's.
And he goes, well, you don't want that one. Like there's a choice.
Yeah.
Well, if I had a choice, I'd pick none.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, well, touch your toes, do all this other stuff. But I had been doing everything I could. I would get up 4:30 in the morning. I would go swim at the pool before I would go to work because I was thinking, what is going on? I used to walk, 18 holes, 27 holes. It would be no problem. And then all of a sudden I couldn't walk 9 holes. And I was only in my,
Middle
30.
30s.
Yeah. So it was a problem. So, but nobody could figure it out. Anyway, once they figured it out, I had the pituitary removed, and now I'll take all the hormones. So,
Wow.
And he looks so good now. That's why people are like, wait, what?
yeah.
That's wild. All right, so trying to go back on the timeline. So you guys were married for how long at that point?
8 years. And we had a 6-month-old, a 1.5-year-old, and a 3.5-year-old.
Okay. And you were like just like stopping nursing at that
I
point?
had stopped after the second one was born.
After the second one. Okay. And you were still paper company?
I'm still selling paper and packaging, yes.
Okay. So then after that all happened, how long was the recovery and all of that?
The recovery took a long time because they felt like there was a partial part of my pituitary left, and so they wanted to see if it would jumpstart really, and so they kept me on these very, very low threshold of replacement hormones, and at least for 6 to 8 months, and then finally it's like, 1, it's not working. 2, we got 3 kids. Okay, I mean, I got to be able to function somehow. And so endocrinologist made a decision to go ahead and put me back on full replacement. And because 1, nothing was working, right? Most of the levels were 0. So if you can imagine your testosterone level at 0, which is where mine was, because nothing's working. And so your thyroid's not doing what it should. And so it was a process. But, you gradually get to feeling better. And
He had surgery the beginning of June, and then he was back at work full-time late October.
yeah.
Oh,
So not
But
too bad.
But he continued to improve a lot over that first year.
Yeah. Really first couple of years, really. But June, July, August, I was in the bed.
yeah.
But that's also when we got interested in really, what are we putting in our bodies? What are we doing? And, how does our home affect health? How does, we started dabbling and learning about a lot more health issues.
For sure.
And as a nurse, I had to unlearn some of what I'd been taught.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So what did you guys learn
From
during that time? Like when you started like realizing like, oh, X causes Y.
And it's been, we're still learning and we still try things. But I thought, I had always thought that essential oils were silly or what you eat mattered some, but it didn't matter that much. And we started like having relief from a headache with peppermint or really noticing a difference. And I do think our food sourcing had changed too during that time that played a part in all that. So it's interesting how finely balanced we are. And, you do learn about homeostasis, that your body's always trying to maintain equilibrium. And there's so many things that we're doing that affect us. And I get involved with a lot of areas, groups to try and understand more and do what I can.
Yeah. One thing I learned is you think you're in control, but you're not in control. Okay. That's the biggest thing I learned.
For sure.
You do what you can, but trying to maintain control of everything will just drive you nuts, right? But you do the best you possibly can. But having that perspective on things makes a huge difference.
So what was one of the most either, I don't want to say important, but like long lasting things that you've learned that's been really important, like with like health, food, et cetera, that like made the biggest difference?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. And if people don't want you to ask questions, you go somewhere else and ask more questions.
That's very fair. Some people just accept X answer or X thing as fact and don't do their own research.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, too, as a nurse, I thought was really, it did impact me long term. I don't think I've thought about that. He had joined a Cushing support group. And you get the medical advice of here's what to do. And I did home health, too. So, you know in the books, this is the way something should happen. And this is how you can advocate for somebody or whatnot. But then you learn real life situation, and it's completely different. And how to live with this long term. We did get so much help, and he tried to maintain connections with people that were on this Cushing support network when the internet was really little.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot. It does help to talk to somebody who's going through the same thing or has been.
Yeah. For sure. It normally happens to women, really. The Cushing's thing is majority women. It's rare that it's the men. Although there was one guy that I talked to, I believe in Mississippi or something, that he went through the same surgery, but, in his situation, all his things came back to work, so.
And we were pretty aggressive for 6 years in trying to find help. And that's the other thing that when I've sort of go to the doctor with somebody or something just to be an extra set of ears, and asking good questions is because so many people just sit back and say, oh, the doctor said it's nothing. It's nothing. And a lot of the people didn't have nearly as good of an outcome as he did because they did not ask. And until cortisol is very hard on your body, and a lot of people have like multi-system organ damage.
Yeah.
And they can't heal as well.
And they normally have that. I don't even know, I can't remember exactly the longevity after having it, but it's like 15 years or something. Okay. because one, it's so hard to diagnose, and then two, because it took so long to diagnose, then people have caused failure on their organs, like she said. But back then, I was doing everything possible. I stopped. I think I was eating maybe 15 carbs a day.
You wouldn't share a single dessert with me.
15 carbs a day, and I couldn't lose any weight.
And he lost his sense of humor completely, but it came back in the recovery room, which was crazy.
And my blood pressure went back to the day I had that tumor removed. My blood pressure went back to normal.
That's insane.
Yeah,
literally like a light switch.
Like a light switch.
That's crazy.
So that's been a big part of our journey, right? Is just health and my health, right? And something happens to you like that, you can't control it. You just do the best you can.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so then after Knoxville, we ended up going to
Well, his mom had always done real estate since 94, 95.
She did it after I got out of college.
Okay.
Or after I left the house, she got into real estate.
And she kept asking him to come sell real estate with her.
Was anybody else in your family in real estate?
No, just my mom.
Was anybody in your family in real estate? No? Okay, so just your mom. Okay.
So I work with my mom and my wife, okay?
Okay, so you went to go work with her?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we moved.
Moved to Winston-Salem from Tennessee and started real estate. And I actually got my license in Tennessee and then just transferred them. So it was good. And she retired in 2010. So it was about 6 years there we worked together. And then Angie joined me in 2018.
Officially,
yeah. So it was good. And then we moved here in 2020.
What caused you guys to move here?
He got mold toxicity.
Another health concern. So, okay. And so one of the medications that I take is called desmopressin. Basically, it's a nasal spray that keeps you from losing fluids. And so I got a prescription that wasn't correct. And I took it
3 months.
3 to 4 months, yeah. And so my immune system dropped during that time, and I got sick from mold. And that sent us on a whole nother journey of trying to figure out what is wrong. And so
first we were just trying to keep him alive because in that spring he couldn't walk to the mailbox. He was so weak from a headache, and the dizziness was so bad.
Yeah.
From mold?
From mold toxicity, yeah.
Where was the mold?
It happened to be in a house that I was selling. And
so it wasn't even your house.
Wasn't even my house. It was a house that I was selling. But
he'd been in all sorts of crawl spaces and things over time. It was just that he went in this crawl space to look out for a little widow, and
with the inspector, yeah.
And he was normally okay with it, but because he was on this really bad alternate drug, it got in his.
I got given a prescription that had expired 4 years prior to me taking it.
It was recalled.
It was recalled 4 years prior. And it happened to be on the shelf. I got given the medication. That's a whole nother story that I really don't want to go into, but it was, anyway, dropped my immune system, got sick from the mold. Then you don't really know it's mold. Go to the hospital, you have bronchitis, all these crazy things.
Yeah, first we were just trying to keep him alive.
That was 2014, at the end of 14. And so 15, 16, 17, I'm just doing my best to make it. She's still homeschooling, still selling real estate. And 18.
So you got the prescription back in 15?
14. 14. And I got sick in 14, and it never got better. And so so I was still selling real estate. She was homeschooling the kids. And so 2018, it got to a really bad point where I couldn't function, So I'm like, you're going to have to help. So basically she got in real estate and started helping me. And it took me until August of 18 to get diagnosed that it was mold. In May, I think I had ENTs, like you have this ball of mold and fungus, or fungus and bacteria in your
Bacteria,
sphenoid.
fungus, and pus.
Yeah, in your sphenoid sinus, which is
All the way back in there.
Anyway. So I had sphenoid surgery to try to help there. Then there was a lady in Greensboro, North Carolina, Dr. Ingram, who was a mold toxicity doctor. And so she helped people with mold. And so she was helping people with mold because she was an internal medicine doctor, but she got mold toxicity from her office building. And she realized there's a huge need here for helping people. And so I saw her for at least 2 years.
Oh, wow, yeah.
You know, weekly for 2 years.
Sometimes they do their treatments together.
Yeah. Eventually, she was like, I asked her about the beach because I'd heard the beach was really good. Salt air was really nice for people that had this condition. And she's like, that's the best place you could move, is salt air. She said, you got to be careful because there's plenty of houses down there with mold issues, leaks, so forth. But salt air is great. And so that's why we moved.
The funny thing is when we put on our realtor hats, which is almost all the time, we're not supposed to say mold. We're supposed to say evidence of fungal growth.
Oh.
Because we're not mold inspectors. So I want to make
Although
that disclaimer.
we do try to have, we do. I mean, we're working with a buyer. We're going to have a mold inspection.
Yeah.
You know.
For sure. Okay, so you got the bad prescription 2014, and then you were exposed to mold in 14?
And 14.
Okay, and then just that one exposure compounded
Yes.
over the, oh my God.
Well, it just got worse. And once it gets into your system, the doctors say it gets into your fat cells.
Yeah.
And then your body has a very difficult time removing it, and it just sort of manifests itself, you know. And so
it's not like you were like in a place constantly that had this mold. It was just that one time, and then it started growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, it's very very odd in a way because from 2004 to 2014, you know, in North Carolina, there's basements. You're going in all kinds of stuff that you really never have a problem. That I never had a problem with.
Right.
Never had a headache. Never any of those things. And it wasn't until this prescription until it dropped my immune system. It gave me what's called hyponatremia, which is very low sodium. Okay, and my sodium was like 116, 120, which is very bad. Okay,
The endocrinologist called us at dinner. She got the lab results late, and we were having a late dinner, like at 8. And she called and she said, "Where are you?" And we said, "At dinner." And she goes, "Well, if you feel anything at all, go to the hospital immediately." And we're like, "Okay."
But your body compensates. You know, your body, like she said earlier, your body's always trying to compensate for things. And so even though I was still dizzy back then, even with that hyponatremia, but it wasn't and it's crazy, the hyponatremia and the mold toxicity have very similar symptoms, which is headaches, dizziness, brain fog even. And so once I got on the correct medication, which my doctor had no idea about. Okay, she had no idea the pharmacy had given me a new prescription, which, you know, so.
But the cool thing is through the legal route that we went to try and make sure that didn't happen to somebody else, we were connected with some people that really did connect the dots in terms of what we could find to get him to heal. Because if we hadn't found some of the links along the way, which were just total random happenstance, we wouldn't have gotten a handle on how to help.
Right.
Yeah. So once we got here, you know, I started feeling better, definitely with the salt air. And I still wasn't really selling a whole lot of real estate. It was mainly Angie showing the houses, you know, because I didn't know when I was going to get into a moldy situation or what have you. And so I would do the admin, and so she was doing a lot of majority of the work, really. Okay. And so about a year ago, I went through listening to a couple of people about how to remove inflammation. That one of the things that mold toxicity, Lyme's disease, all those different things cause is what they call chronic inflammatory response. Okay, and so your body has all this inflammation and it can't get rid of it, so it makes it hard to heal. And so I went on an all beef diet, so no bread, no French fries, which I love. Okay.
Everybody always says, "But you have that for breakfast?"
And so that's what I eat. And so, but going on that all beef diet somehow removes the inflammation in my body. And so I still had headaches up until last November. Headaches, dizziness.
No, he had one continuous headache that waxed and waned since 2014.
Since that time I got exposed.
Until like January.
And so when so for a long time, right? I mean, that's 8 years. 8 years. I had a headache and dizziness to the point where, we lived in Hilton Head Plantation. There's 4 golf courses in that neighborhood, and I love to play golf. And I couldn't even go putt, because I was so dizzy. But when we went on the all beef diet, within 6 weeks, my headaches and dizziness went away. So I've been on it ever since. And not that I don't cheat every now and then, but 99% of the time, that's what I'm eating, just because I feel better. And so here we go again, right?
I mean, now I really want a steak, but
it makes
it's been a lot of health stuff, but
it makes grocery shopping really easy.
Yes.
Sure.
You just get the whole thing and chop it up and salt.
That's great.
So a lot of our journey has been health stuff, but it's also been about making sure we're going to find the right house that doesn't have the issues, right? If it's got a crawl space, has that crawl space been treated correctly? There's a lot of times the crawl spaces here especially will have mold issues. And so,
So you guys are going to make sure your people, for sure, don't have the same issues or even can come into contention of those issues.
To the best of our ability, exactly. Because I think it's important, and I think that's what sets us apart. A lot of times, I had an inspector tell me, he goes, "You're way less transactional than the other agents that I'm in touch with," because I do care what the client's getting, and I do care about what condition the house is in, so.
And it helps us with sellers and buyers and investors to know, because I think one of the really cool things that can be happening for investors, there's a lot of chronically ill people in our country now. And it seems like it's worse every year, but more and more people are like us. And when we go away, we're looking for something with central heat and air, no mini splits. We're looking for healthy cleaning products or healthier. There's a whole range of what is healthy. And so I'm working on a little Instagram thing called Hilton Head Healthy that I want to highlight some things like that in terms of all the options here that are building health.
Insert here.
I mean, that is a big deal. When we go on a trip, I've got to make sure that the hotel that I'm staying in doesn't have a window unit. Okay. One, because those are heat pumps and those things produce a lot of water, just like in your house. So my heat pump that I have at my house, I have the blower motor cleaned every year because there's so much water that's used in that heat pump. It produces, the blower motor will be full of mold. Okay. Just blowing through your system. And you don't realize how bad that can be, right? So something I do every year now is just have that cleaned. It's only $300.
Right after we get off this podcast, I'm going to call Superior and have them clean my blower motor.
Exactly.
Because I can guarantee you that hasn't been cleaned since that house has been built.
That's just, again, something you learn in real estate because you're at the home inspections, you're making sure you're watching your clients, and you got a trusted HVAC guy, and he's like, this is a problem with these units. And it doesn't matter if the thing's a year old or 2 years old. It's got the problem. And so
it can happen anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Especially with all our humidity.
And so when we were at our last house, we replaced all the ductwork, just because the ductwork just gets full of that stuff, and it's just one of the steps you got to do to try to have clean air.
We also have a really good guy that cleans ductwork with healthy products.
Yeah.
That's important.
No, it is important.
I mean, who hasn't? Well, somebody has got to have claimed that website. I got a guy.
If
Somebody
not,
already took Angie's list, so maybe we can do
is
that.
True. So, salty air is good.
That's good.
Why is Hilton Head the choice for the salty air when you could have gotten salty air
Anywhere on the coast?
anywhere on the coast?
So we got we found out the last week of May 20 that we needed to move to a beach somewhere, and
Not bad news.
yeah, not.
Yeah,
I mean,
could
that's
be
like
worse.
Could
I
be
was
worse.
like,
Yeah.
anyway, because I grew up in Knoxville, and there's water around, and there's no water where we were in Winston, but there's wonderful people. But anyway, it was our way to better geography, and we started scouring the whole eastern seaboard, and knowing his parents were in Winston, we didn't
Played
want
a
to be
huge
too
factor.
far from them and family and friends. And I tell people everywhere we looked at in Florida seemed either super bougie or super 70s, and we were like, where are the middle people? And
You're not wrong about that.
and then we looked at other little islands or areas that were closer. We looked at Wilmington because it would have been easier to keep our licenses in state. And there's no place like Hilton Head that offers the proximity to other places, because we can go to Savannah or Charleston or Beaufort easily. We can go. Bluffton's a lot of fun for a little change of pace, but there's always festivals here. There's so much. There's an art community. There's musicians. We had no idea even about the musicians before we moved here, but there's so much fun music here. And then the music festival that was just here was like, it was insanely great.
Which is going to be an annual thing now that Hilton Head does with the
Did you go?
the songwriter
not.
the songwriter festival, which is with BMI out of Nashville. So they're going to start coming here every year. It's going to be a big deal, and it was a lot of fun last year.
It was so much fun.
With this year. But yeah, there's you think you don't realize until you move here all the things there are to do, and it's just a ton of stuff to do.
And the people that move here, it reminds, because I went to Vanderbilt, and so nobody goes to Vanderbilt with their friends. You have to all, like, you're thrown together and you meet new people and whatnot. But here, people that are active for the most part, that like being outside, that like birds. That's one of my very big things that I didn't know was coming. But the birds here.
There's so many birds.
They're so much fun.
In a good way.
And there's clubs about all these things, and there's groups for people that just do, like, when we were in Hilton Head Plantation, the women's group is like 20 groups in one, and a lot of the other ones I know do the same thing. They have a golf group or an out to lunch group or a happy hour group
Men's
or
group, whatever, yeah.
a day trippers group, and there's just, like, people have done, and you sit down at a table of new people, and you never know who you're going to meet. I was sitting next to, like, the CEO of one. She'd been C-suite something in a well-known chain, and on one side, and the other guy was the commander of a nuclear submarine or something. And I just think that you just get that in Hilton Head. You never know what people's stories are, where they've been or what they've seen, and it's endless array of just people.
It's like a melting pot, because
It is.
nobody's actually from here. So you just get to meet.
It's rare.
Yeah.
Right,
It's
it's rare.
You
And
get
then,
to
but
meet
then there's
people
that
from
flavor
everywhere.
too, because then there's the whole Gullah history and everything else that is incredible. And so I love.
We love being here.
Speaking of
And
Gullah,
we happen to know
A few of our other friends had moved here.
3 couples from North Carolina that we spent weeks with, church, all kinds of stuff. We'd known really since 2006. Okay, and they moved down here in 2019. We moved in 20. One couple had moved in 2014, but
Full time. Well, they'd been there for longer than that.
Okay. But yeah, so it helped to have friends, right, that were here. But it's amazing how easy it is to meet people here too. And
Well, I gotta say my other favorite thing about Hilton Head, you can go anywhere, and if you're, like, just down the street when they have $8 burgers on Wednesdays,
shout out Top Dog.
Wednesdays.
go Top Dog. We love the hamburgers on Wednesdays. But you can just sit at a bar anywhere and have a conversation with somebody, and people aren't like, oh, maybe I'll see you again, maybe I won't. It's all good. And it's just like, it's relaxed and enjoyable and friendly and fantastic.
It is definitely like relaxed and like slower. So I'm from up north, and like nobody would smile at you. Nobody says thank you for holding the door. You know, you say good morning to somebody as you're walking by, and they like stare at you like, what's wrong with you?
Yep.
And here, you like say good morning to somebody, and they actually smile back and like ask you how you are. And it's not just like small talk, like, oh, how you doing? It's like, okay, I don't actually care. Like, you can actually start conversations with people, and it's very nice.
It is. It is. It's an easy place, and the dog friendliness is fun too.
Yeah, and the shouldn't say walkability, the bikeability, and yeah, the whole island's like a bike path. It's crazy. I lived here for like 12 years, and there's always something new that we find.
Or like just a little something else tucked away that you just haven't seen yet.
Yep.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It is always nice coming back here because, like I said, I've lived here for 12 years and kind of get numb to it, especially like this being my view of my office. I am kind of numb to.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I get kind of numb to being in a marina, and then like we went to Statesboro last weekend for my friend's wedding, and driving back in, I'm like, yep, that's pretty cool here.
When you cross the bridge, it just.
It's relaxing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially during sunrise or sunset. Yeah.
That's one of the things I've been doing this summer because we sold our house in Hilton at Plantation and we moved to Shipyard, and it's real close to the, it's much closer to the beach. Right. When I was in HHP, we had to basically drive to Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
we like Dolphin Head too.
Yeah,
Dolphin
but it's
Head's
not
gorgeous.
technically the
Yeah,
beach.
a
Although we
sound.
did take a lot of walks around Pine Island, you know, and walk the dog, but it's always fun.
So when you guys
Sunset.
moved here, you moved to Hilton Head Plantation?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What made you choose Hilton Head Plantation initially?
Because it was all residential.
Mainly long-term tenants if they were going to do that, but for the most part, people are still working in there,
Mhm.
you know, and there's plenty of retired folks, don't get me wrong, but we just love that. And we had a kid that was a senior in high school at the time. He was closer to the school, you know, because he went to Hilton at high school. And
we loved that house, and we loved our street.
oh man, that was the
But
best
that was
street.
hard. That was hard to leave the street and the people there. But they keep inviting us back to their monthly parties. So,
So then you moved from Hilton Head Plantation to Shipyard.
Yeah, we downsized a lot from
Yeah.
about 3,000 square feet to about 1,200 square feet.
Because
And,
now all four of your kids are college?
They're
gone.
out, and we live in I feel like I've hit the jackpot because we live in a place where when they all come, which is not that often, but it's enough, we can rent a place that's the right number of bedrooms.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, it's just us and the dog, and it's
It's
so
good.
easy.
What type
And
of
we
dog do you have?
Golden.
He was a
Nice.
rescue. You know, we've had him for about a year and a half, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was good.
So what do you guys like to do the most in your free time?
I'm trying to stop that. Meeting people, having fun. I like photography. I like being on the water, going to festivals, listening to music.
I mean, it's just like the Oyster Festival tonight. You know, it's always something like that going on, you know, that we can go to and just hang out with a lot of the folks that we've met. And,
I like to dance.
yeah, dancing's fun.
And
Because I
the
couldn't
fact that
dance for a long time, you know, just because of the dizziness. It was like, whoa. And
It's true.
you just feel miserable, so.
And the fact that it's like 76 degrees in the middle of November?
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it's pretty
Not
cool.
bad.
Yeah. So sometimes after work, go play 9 holes. You know, I like to do that. So gorgeous golf courses here.
We have a few.
And now I can walk 9 holes, so no big deal.
You playing in the tournament next week?
I am, yes.
Are you playing?
No.
Why not?
Well, the only time I tried to learn to play golf, I kept getting pregnant, and that was hard. And I never got past that. Oh, we play pickleball. I play pickleball. He's maybe
I don't do too much pickleball. I like pickleball, but
Pickleball is fun.
It is fun, yeah.
Especially Palmetto Dunes being across the street from here and having an office there. Go play pickleball there sometimes.
We've played there, yeah.
Yep. So we've got a fun group that actually we brought some of our clients to play pickleball with the group that we play with because they're so easy and fun, and they like newbies to get into. So.
Yeah, every Tuesday we play, there's a pickleball group going on, so.
That's been fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
So we're going to go into the quick fire section.
Oh.
I'm going to ask you guys your top threes. Actually, no. First, we're going to go with X or Y. So I'm going to ask you between two things. And I think I already know the answer to a couple of them. So, steak or seafood?
Steak.
Steak.
Kind of already
Although
knew that.
I'll go more, I'll deviate more. Okay. But I feel better when I'm doing what he's doing.
Golf or tennis?
Golf.
I would pick up golf before tennis.
Beach or boat?
I say beach.
That's a hard
Although
call.
I like the boat. Don't get me wrong. I like the boat. And we go on the boat with some friends pretty often. But, I don't know. I love walking the dog on the beach. You know? I like getting up there at sunrise and before we start the day and
getting with friends and playing games or just hanging out. It's fun. It's a great place to be. Either one. I can't decide.
That's fair. Now, your favorites. Favorite restaurant?
Here?
Yep.
Alfred's.
I do like Alfred's.
That's
Alfred's
actually the best fish I've ever had on island.
I like Alfred's and I like Ambra.
And it's a German place. Ambra, yeah. We've got a lot. I like.
There's so many Wise Guys. They're so
just
good.
for the steak bites, the Raging Cajuns at the one down at Caligny.
We've done that a bunch.
They have a great happy hour. They're my favorite happy hour.
We've done that too many times.
I'm going to get food after this. Very hungry now.
Oh, shoot. What's the name of that restaurant? But, yeah.
Alfred's and Umbra?
Those are the two favorites.
Two favorites? All right.
Yeah. Although we, because we have the Surge card, which is a local thing here, you buy the Surge card, you get 25% discount. So Frankie Bones and
we have so many good restaurants to choose from. It's really hard.
We've done that so many times. I mean, we've probably been to Frankie Bones more than any of them.
Especially when we lived in HHP because it was right there.
Yeah, it was so easy.
And
then Wise Guys has been redone now, and so that's a great venue. But it's owned by Surge also, so.
Nice. Favorite golf course?
I like the Robert Trent Jones course,
Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong there. No, in HHP, I like Oyster Reef, which is a really nice course there. So.
Favorite place to take photos for you, since you said you're into photography?
Cypress Wetlands in Port Royal. I found that place by accident when I was over there showing some property, or we had a listing over there, and I happened on it by accident, and it's incredible.
What type of photography do you mainly shoot?
Well, when kids were in the house, it was a lot of swimming and basketball and kids stuff and proms and senior photos and that sort of thing, and more people oriented. But now it's more birds and scenery.
Favorite type of bird to photograph?
The snowy egrets in mating season.
I don't even know what those look like, but
They're both the big white egrets, the great egrets. They start their eyes. There's a name for the little sort of yucky stuff around their eyes that's just normally kind of yellow. Mm-hmm. It turns like aqua blue in mating season, and then the snowies get all these extra feathers and they're just gorgeous. And the snowies they have black legs and yellow feet, but both male and female turn to orange in mating season.
That's cool.
Which I think is just like, what makes their feet turn? It's just...
What type of camera do you use?
It's a little Sony something. I used to have a Nikon, and I'm still learning this Sony because it has a great zoom, and it's I need to stop with my hands. It works really well for birds and scenery, and it's an all-purpose. It's just a basic, but I don't know it like I felt like the Nikon was part of me, and I knew where it was.
Shout out Sony.
But yeah, I'm learning the Sony, and I'm liking it.
I'm a fan of Sony cameras. I have 3. Yeah. Let's see. So what is something for each of you, it's a question for each of you, that people don't know that you might find interesting or that they might find interesting?
We share a lot of information. I don't know. There's a lot of things that most
About
people know.
us or about just in general?
Just in general about you guys.
Do you know why Veterans Day is on the 11th?
I don't.
I just read this because World War I ended at 11/11 on 11/11.
It's a lot of 11s.
Yeah,
Look at
well,
that.
that was cool.
I learn something new every day.
It's
Actually,
good to do that.
I've learned a whole bunch of new stuff today. Okay, but now interesting fact about you guys, individually or together.
One thing I'll tell you is that Angie never stops, okay? She's always into something. Community group, leading this, leading that. So she's not going to sit still. That's the biggest thing, really. You know, she never has. So
That's a good thing.
it's a good thing. Yeah.
I can't help it.
She likes her plate to be full.
Made like an Australian sheepdog. Kind of.
About me, I don't know.
You're persevering, for sure.
People don't know that I'm funny.
So that is true because some of the boys, their friends, they thought he was very, very serious all the time, and he says a lot of just. He'll say things like he's always pulling people's legs by saying stuff that sounds like he's serious.
The deadpan delivery.
Yes.
And,
Although most of the time I'm not being serious. Okay. So.
And that's what actually was so funny because in the recovery room after his brain tumor, he had not joked in months, maybe years. And I forgot how long. And I forgot that the guy I married was funny. And he made some comment and I whipped around. I was like, oh, that's the guy I married. He's back.
Yeah. So sort of funny.
There you go. So we're going to wrap it up. What would you guys like to end off with?
Well, I hope that helps some in knowing who we are to bring value for your real estate because that's what we do. That's what we love doing. And we love finding out what our buyers and sellers and investors are really most important to them and tailoring our service to just that. And we've got a lot of different experiences to bring that.
Yeah.
It seems like you guys also really, really care. How you were saying before, it's not just transactional. Like you truly care about helping people, making sure that they get what they want and what's best for them so that they're not.
It's a huge investment, right? Yeah. And not everybody's purchase here is a primary residence. And so they're trying to buy something from a far away, where they come in for a few days and they're trying to buy something. They need somebody here that they can trust and can tell them what's going on and be there for them at the inspections and if it's a seller, just making sure they're, getting the best value they can. There's so much stuff to do. We've the last 2 or 3 years have not seen this because everything's really sold as is, no repairs, none of that stuff. But, I went through a dip. I mean, again, starting in 2004 and then from 2008 to 2012, it wasn't the best time in real estate. And so, you got to be a little bit creative and you got to be able to help the sellers in such a way that, they're able to negotiate things with repairs and not spend a fortune trying to sell their house, So.
And that's a big thing that why we're excited about being with Dunes, to have a team like you and Nancy and Linda and everybody, Kelly, to Jessica, I knew I was forgetting one. To do all the little things to make the whole transaction flow so well. It's very exciting.
Well, we are very happy to have you guys. So
Thanks, Connor.
it's been a pleasure talking to you guys today,
Nice talking
and
to you.
getting to learn about you. Like that's crazy that you went through all that, and I'm happy that you persevered.
Thank you.
And yeah,
Oh, and so at one point that was our tagline. We want to blend professionalism with some fun, because when you're having a stressful time and buying something, you can approach it with a bigger picture perspective and bring some fun to sometimes stressful situations and make it better.
for sure.
I think that's one of the other compliments I would get from a buyer or seller, and they would be like, "That's the easiest time I've ever had selling my house." You know, not that we wouldn't have issues, because thinking
There's
about
always
this,
issues.
there's always things, you know, but knowing how to deal with those things, how to overcome them, makes a big difference. So you always like to hear that it was easy, you know, because there's plenty of stress selling your house.
That is very true. So where can people find you guys?
HutchinsTeam.com.
It's the easiest place.
We're also on Insta. Everything is Hutchins Team, with Instagram, Facebook. We're going to ramp up the TikTok. I keep going back and forth on whether to use that platform or not.
You
But
should.
I love the editing. It's so easy. And LinkedIn.
Yep. Todd
All those.
Hutchins, Angie Hutchins. Yep.
I will list all of those
Oh, thank you.
on the screen.
We
at
try
the
to have
end.
a list of little presents in some.
I thought you were going to ask me the worst story I've ever had, or the worst thing in real estate that I ever had happen. So
Well, we have time. So what's the worst thing that ever happened to you in real estate?
the worst thing that ever happened was I was helping a buyer purchase a property. The seller had a oil tank. Okay, so this particular buyer was going to remove all that and have the oil pumped out and change systems, etc. And so we had a large company, I'm not even going to say the company's name here, come and pump out the oil out of the oil tank. And the driver laid down the hose after he'd pumped all the oil out into his truck. And all the oil ran back out of the hose into the backyard. And we had to get North Carolina Department of Natural Resources involved. We had to dig a 20-foot hole in the backyard because oil was everywhere, and it had gone at least 20 feet deep. So they had to bring in all these backhoes, and then we had to bring in new virgin soil and put all that back in, and the basement smelled like oil. It was a mess, but we got through it. We
Yikes.
fixed it. It was...
Do
it all worked out,
Do you have
really.
a funny story?
Funny story.
I know we do.
Yeah, we've had inspector fall through the roof. Somebody found squirrel that like fell through a hole.
I took somebody
That's
on.
not funny, though. That's like,
I took somebody on a tour of one house that was they wanted to see a lake, and they're rare in Winston, but this one was next to a lake, and it was just a really odd layout. And we got upstairs to the bedroom, and there was this window, this long, tall, arched window from the bedroom into the living room. And we were like, the couple was like, "What's that for?" I was like, "Maybe they like Rapunzel." I mean, you just don't know if something is like, people do some interesting things to their homes.
They sure do.
I can't think of a funny story right now.
That's the only one I got right now. I know there's been others.
It's hard to be funny in real estate. I mean, I've had bat stories where an attic was full of bats, and you can't do anything about it because they're protected. And it was mating season, and the buyer was going to have to live with them for 3 months. It was crazy.
I have a
Not
good
too,
one.
not too funny.
I have a good one for you guys, but I'll tell you offline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So thank you guys
Thank
for being
you.
here today. This was a blast, and look forward to shooting more properties for you guys.
Sounds
And,
great.
That'll
Thanks.
be fun.
You do a great job.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to Behind the Dunes. Again, I'm your host, Connor, with Todd and Angie Hutchins. of the Hutchins team. And that's it. Thanks for listening.